Hello and welcome to Formula Phil. And today we'll be doing a short video on Alberto Ascari. Alberto Ascari was an Italian racing driver and twice Formula 1 world champion. He was a multi-talented racer who competed in motorcycle racing before switching to cars. Ascari won consecutive world titles in the 1952 and 1953 for Scuderia Ferrari. He was Ferrari's first world champion. Ascari also won the Mille Miglia in 1954. He was noted for the careful precision and finely judged accuracy that made him one of the safest drivers in the most dangerous of eras. Ascari remains, along with Michael Schumacher, Ferrari's only back-to-back world champion, and he's also Ferrari's sole Italian champion. But before all that, let's find a little bit more about the man. Alberto Ascari, born in Milan on July 13th, 1918, was just 7 years old when his famous father, Antonio, the reigning European champion, was killed leading the French Grand Prix. Despite the tragic loss of his beloved father, Alberto succumbed to the lure of racing. His famous name helped to get him started, though it was on 2 wheels, not 4, when, as a 19-year-old, he was hired for the Bianchi motorcycle team. His first 4-wheeled foray came in the 1940 Mille Miglia, where Enzo Ferrari gave him a ride in a Tipo 815 Spider. All racing stopped during the war years. He established a transport business, supplying fuel to the Italian army in North Africa. It wasn't until 1949 that he joined Enzo Ferrari's team, where Ascari's dominance would make him Formula 1's racing's first back-to-back champion. In 1952, he won 6 of the 7 championship races, and again in 1953, he won 5 of the 7, cruising to a second successive driving title. A great driver admired by all his peers, Ascari was also a charming man, and he was idolized by a legion of admirers. His illustrious heritage helped, as did his amazing driving skill, but it was his winning persona also contributed to his huge popularity. It was easy to like a hero who was so obviously no prima donna. The driver with the plump physique, whom the Italian fans nicknamed Chubby, and whose open and friendly disposition was apparent from his genial smile. Even his superstitions were endearing, an entirely human response to the dangers of racing. He avoided black cats like the plague, had a horror of unlucky numbers, and never allowed anyone to handle the briefcase that contained his racing apparel, the lucky blue helmet and his blue t-shirt. But perhaps he also had some inner demons, for he was a chronic insomniac and prone to stomach ulcers. Enzo Ferrari, who knew Ascari, was deeply devoted to his family. Once asked him why he didn't demonstrate any affection, Ascari said, "I prefer to treat them the hard way. I don't want them to love me too much, because they will suffer less if one of these days I am killed." Such an eventuality seemed most unlikely for a driver who always strictly observed self-imposed safety margins, studiously avoided exceeding the limits of his car and himself, and whose relaxed, smooth driving style looked so effortless, as if it would suggest that he had plenty of skill left in reserve to correct any mistake. Following his runaway championships, he moved to Lancia, mainly because he fell out with Ferrari over money, having been sidelined for most of 1954 because the Lancias were not yet raceworthy. He embarked on an ill-fated 1955 campaign. That year, at the Monaco Grand Prix, he lost control at the harbour chicane, flew into the Mediterranean and sank. Its disappearance marked only by a stream of bubbles and an oil slick. Less than half a minute later, the familiar blue helmet bobbed to the surface, and Ascari was hauled aboard a rescue launch manned by frogmen. In the Monaco hospital, where he was treated for a broken nose, bruises and shock, Ascari seemed to be as embarrassed as he was thankful for his miraculous escape. 4 days later, he unexpectedly appeared at Monza to watch a practice session in which Eugenio Castellotti was testing a Ferrari sports car. They were both scheduled to share in a forthcoming endurance race. Ascari surprised everyone by announcing he wanted to do a few laps just to make sure he hadn't lost his nerve. He was wearing a jacket and tie and had left his lucky blue helmet at home, so he borrowed Castellotti's white helmet and set off around Monza. On the 3rd lap, that Ferrari crashed inexplicably and Alberto Ascari was killed. Had he suffered a blackout, a legacy of the Monaco accident? Was there a gust of wind? Had his flapping tie momentarily obscured his vision? Had he swerved suddenly to avoid a wandering track worker, or an animal, perhaps even a black cat? And this is where it gets a little strange. The eerie certainties that were Alberto Ascari died on May the 26th, 1955, at the age of 36. Antonio Ascari, his father, was 36 when he died, on July the 26th, 1925. Both father and son had won 13 championship Grand Prix. Both were killed exactly 4 days after surviving serious accidents. Both had crashed fatally at the exit of a fast but easy left-hand corners, and both left behind a wife and 2 children. All of Italy mourned the loss, and on the day of the funeral, Milan fell silent. It is estimated 1 million mourners dressed in black and attended his funeral. A familiar light blue helmet lay on top of a black coffin, and in the Milan cemetery Alberto Ascari was laid to rest next to the grave of his father. With the whole motor racing world in shock, he will be remembered as one of the greatest racers of all time. And that's it. That is Alberto Ascari. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please click like or even subscribe. And that's all we have time for with Formula Phil. Good luck!